It's a common theme for us to come on here and say that someone gave high praise to Kirby Smart and to Georgia, but I think that it's really important when it comes from NFL minds, from NFL coaches, NFL GMs. The Houston, Texas camp has been extremely positive about UGA football, and this is, you get a Georgia guy, you're getting an NFL player. D'Amico Ryan said that the other day. He said a lot. I'm going to read the whole thing to you. I'm going to direct you to dogpost.com to look at the written version and all the content we're doing. But D'Amico Ryans and the Houston, Texas GM, Nick Caserio, this offseason, which the offseason is dwindling down. We're getting into real football season time. They have been so positive about Kirby Smart, about UGA football. Why? Well, they used their second-round draft pick this year on Kamari Lassiter, corner out of Georgia this past season, right? That's just a few months ago back in April. He's a guy that had either a first or second round grade. He ends up being one of the first, 10, 15 picks of the second round. I think he was picked 43 off the top of my head, right? So Kamari Lassiter ends up being a high second round pick and continues a trend of a lot of defensive backs getting drafted for Georgia. I'm going to go through a list of guys that just in the last 4 drafts, they've had 10 guys drafted, and I'll go through that. That's insane to me. I want to go ahead and just talk about what D'Amico Ryan said. I'll go ahead and read it for you. This is what he got asked about Kamari Lassiter, and he went on this tangent that was positive about Georgia. Right, quotes. For Kamari Lassiter, you can tell he's built for this. When it comes to the mental toughness piece that plays a lot into being a Georgia football player at this level, you have to be mentally tough. You have to be that next play mentality guy. And at Georgia, Kirby Smart has done a great job of raising them the right way. Kirby's done a great job with all of those guys, having guys NFL ready to go. One thing you see from Georgia year after year since he's been there is that those guys are plug-and-play type players, and it's credit to him and to his program and how they run things there. You get a Georgia guy, you're getting an NFL player. Okay, well, we know that Georgia's had a really good track record with the NFL draft. Over the last handful of drafts, they've had the most players drafted. They broke the record in the 2022 NFL draft, they broke multiple records. They had 15 guys drafted. They had 5 defensive players taken in the first round. It's been ridiculous. Georgia's been flooding it with NFL talent, and it starts with going and getting the guys, but then it turns into the development side of things as well, right? After the Texans chose to take Kamari Lassiter, and I want to talk a little bit about Kamari Lassiter as well because he does embody a lot of this, and Kirby Smart has gone on a whole rant about him after the Orange Bowl win, if you remember that. But Nick Caserio, the GM, when he was asked why they took Kamari Lassiter, right, just giving his reasons out for why they took each of the players that they took in the 2024 NFL draft, he stated that, look, Kirby Smart, along with Nick Saban, they are the best at coaching technique in the secondary. Well, Kirby, secondary guy himself, I think surfacing this past week has been a video of Kirby Smart judging his interceptions, all of his interceptions in college. Well, he did it at Georgia. He knows what he's doing. And you look at Georgia's track record with these defensive backs. Like I said, 10 guys in the last few drafts. In the 24 draft, 3 secondary guys: Kamari Lassiter, Tyke Smith, Javon Bullard. The draft before, you had Keely Ringo and Christopher Smith. The draft before, you had Darion Kendrick. The draft before that, you have Eric Stokes, Richard LeCount, Mark Webb. You got Tyson Campbell. It's ridiculous. It's something that you see happen in a handful of schools, right? LSU has obviously put out a lot of defensive backs. Alabama has put out a lot of defensive backs. Ohio State has put out a lot of defensive backs. I think Michigan is starting to trend in that direction. You'll see more defensive backs probably come out of there. They've done a really good job recruiting and developing those positions. It goes beyond the defensive backs, and we'll move on to that. But I want to talk about Kamari Lassiter too. He is a very good example of Georgia. He's a very good example of what Georgia embodies and what Kirby Smart embodies. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post, if you've stuck with me this long, you know that I'm a big Kamari Lassiter guy. He was one of my favorite players to watch on the UGA football team last year. The guy that celebrated getting up from an injury, slapping his helmet. Right, you got to be a little bit of a psycho to play defensive back is something I like to say. And I think that in a controlled way, Kamari Lassiter had a little bit of that psycho in him, and you see that in those moments. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in a good football way. Look, check out the newsletter. Link it down below. Trust me, on dogpost.com right now, we're pushing out more content than we have in a while. And I think that trend is just only going to continue as the season goes on. It's week 0, right? This video, Tomorrow is freaking Florida State versus Georgia Tech, or the next day. This video is going out, I believe, on Friday. I'm recording this on Wednesday afternoon. This should be publishing on Friday, so just give you a little bit of timeline and where I'm at in case I say something that is no longer true in a couple of days or something along those lines. Kamari Lassiter. You just go to Kirby's rant after the Orange Bowl, and he's talking about how, hey, they sat down with Kamari ahead of the Orange Bowl, sat down with his parents or his mom, and they say, listen, Kamari, you have first or second round grade, right? You're one of the top corners in this class. You don't have to play in this game. I don't think you have much to gain out of playing in this Orange Bowl. Of course, Kirby wants him to play, right? And you want your best players out there, especially in a significant game. Florida State didn't think it was a significant game, but it was. And so originally Kamari was not going to play. And it ate him alive. That's what Kirby said. He said that Kamari called him, was like, Coach, I can't sit around and coach. I need to be out there playing. And so he and Javon Bullard and a lot of other players, they went out there and they risked their bodies. Kendall Milton, a guy who already has injury issues, he went out there and risked his body in the Orange Bowl, and he was productive in the Orange Bowl. Dejan Edwards went out there. A lot of guys went out there that were going on and getting drafted. And it was a culture thing. And it was a culture statement when you think about what was going on between Georgia and Florida State. It was a little bit of a battle of the culture there. A lot of transfer players, not really homegrown Florida State kids. And Georgia, for the most part, builds from within. And Kirby very much cares about establishing a culture. It's an overused word, but getting people to buy into something that's more than about themselves. That is what Kirby Smart has done a very, very good job. And when you get some of the best players in college football in the country to buy into something bigger than themselves, what do you get? You get national championships. Right? A lot of things are added together to get national championships, but you need that part of it. You need people to care about it in a bigger way. And so what happened? Kamari Lassiter, Javon Bullard, leaders of that team, they helped affirm Georgia's culture back in December when they said, yeah, we're going to play in this game. Right? When they were hinting and teasing it, running it back on Instagram, you saw those comments and they're commenting at each other. You wondered if they were talking about coming back for senior. Well, no, those are guys that were going to be drafted in the top 3 rounds. They need to get out of there. Right? Unless you're trying to make yourself a first-round pick coming back, you don't have that much more to gain. They meant going back for that game. And that's why Houston is so impressed with Kamari. And that's why you hear Nick Casseri, you hear D'Amico Ryans talking about Kamari Lassiter and how they think he's an NFL plug-and-play guy. What's another reason why? They get coached to play more than one position. Right? Some schools can't necessarily afford that, but Georgia has a lot of depth. Georgia has a lot of versatility in its talents. Kamari Lassiter can play more than one position. He can play in the slot. He can play on an outside corner. And they probably trusted him to play safety as well. Javon Bullard, you saw him play more than one position. You saw him play that nickel back, that slot corner position. I almost thought he was better at that spot than he was as a deep safety. I think he'll probably end up being a deep safety in the NFL. I'm blanking on where Javon Bullard got. The Packers. He got drafted by Green Bay. I was blanking that for a second. There are examples. Tyke Smith's another example who played Javon Bullard's position at that nickel back, and he played a deeper safety position at West Virginia. So just those 3 guys, it shows you the versatility, the plug and play, the next man up. They embody that. It was next man up when JT Daniels got hurt and Stetson Bennett was the guy. It's next man up when George Pickens goes out. It was next man up when Marius Mims is out for a few weeks and they've got to rotate the offensive line. They learn a lot of NFL traits and they learn a lot of things that takes to succeed in the NFL at Georgia. There are other programs that do that. The main ones that we talk about, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama. I think Texas is getting there. LSU. There's other programs that they put out. They have these mentalities, and they put out all these NFL talent. Kirby's doing it, and Georgia's doing it in a big way. You see the list, right? Not every Georgia player that goes to the NFL is a stud. They're not all Nick Chubb, right, who's one of the best Georgia players in the league right now. I hope he gets back from his injury and gets back to pre-injury form. We'll see how that goes. We know he's a freak, but Trayvon Walker, it's coming along. Even if these guys are just on rosters, they're competing at the highest level in football, and they're putting out a lot of guys. It's only going to continue. I think that in this 2025 draft, you could see up to 10 guys, 12 guys get drafted. When you look at Georgia's offense, there's a lot of dudes that are going to be putting their name in the hat. A couple of offensive linemen, quarterback Carson Beck, probably a couple of outside weapons, maybe a tight end, a few defensive players, right? It's a trend that's going to keep continuing. And according to NFL minds, Georgia's doing it better than anybody else. Thanks for watching.